Ever wish you could just flip a switch and like instantly feel more confident, for those big moments in life, presentations, job interviews, or even just asking someone out?
Oh, totally.
Well, today we're diving into this segment from the Inner Balance Red Print podcast.
Okay.
And they claim to have this science-backed trick to do just that.
Interesting.
It's called power posing. And apparently it can like transform your confidence levels just like that.
Wow, that's a bold claim. What's the idea behind it?
Well, they say it's rooted in this idea that our body language can actually influence our feelings.
So it's not just fake it till you make it. There's actual science behind this.
Exactly. The podcast highlights this Harvard study by Dr. Amy Cuddy,
Okay.
where participants held these power poses. Think Superman stance, arms raised in victory,
I'm picturing it.
for just 2 minutes.
Just 2 minutes.
Yeah, and the results: increased testosterone, the confidence hormone,
Interesting.
and decreased cortisol.
Which is the stress hormone.
Exactly.
Wow. So just standing a certain way can change your hormone levels.
That's what they say.
I'm a little skeptical, but I'm also fascinated. What's the mechanism there? Like, how does that even work?
Well, they say that those like expansive open postures send a signal to your brain
Oh,
that
yeah.
you're in control.
Uh-huh.
And then that triggers the hormonal shift. It's like your body is telling your mind, hey, we got this.
Okay, I see. But does that really translate to actual changes in behavior?
Right.
Or is it just about, like, feeling a little less nervous in the moment?
That's a great question. And honestly, the podcast mainly focuses on anecdotal evidence,
Okay.
like people claiming that power posing helped them ace a job interview or overcome social anxiety,
Right.
or just generally feel more self-assured.
Yeah, personal stories are compelling, but, they're not exactly hard scientific data.
Of course.
It does make you wonder, though.
It really does. It makes me think about, like, those times when I've felt truly confident,
Uh-huh.
and I bet I was probably standing taller, like taking up more space
Interesting.
without realizing it.
The podcast actually points out that everyday movements can reflect this. Like, think about how a confident person walks into a room, right?
Yeah.
Versus someone who is maybe feeling a little insecure.
Totally different vibe.
Their posture and body language speak volumes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So power posing is kind of like hacking into that system, right?
Yeah.
Using our bodies to, like, trick our minds into feeling more confident.
That's a good way to put it.
And the podcast suggests, like, incorporating this into your daily life.
Okay.
Like using power poses before a big event.
Mm-hmm.
Or even just as a way to, like, reset your mindset during those moments of self-doubt.
Interesting. That's where I start to get a little skeptical, Like, is it really that simple? Stand like Superman for 2 minutes and all my worries disappear. I don't know about that.
Well, I mean, it's probably not a magic cure-all, but the research and, these stories, they do suggest there's something to this mind-body connection.
Yeah. You're right. There's definitely a link there. Okay. So let's say I'm willing to give it a try.
Okay.
What are some examples of these power poses? Like, I'm picturing lots of spandex and capes right now.
Well, not quite. Actually, the poses themselves are pretty simple and discreet.
Okay.
They talk about the Wonder Woman pose.
The what?
Wonder Woman. Hands on hips, feet apart.
Oh, okay. I can picture that.
And you could do that pretty much anywhere, right?
Yeah, that's a little less embarrassing than it showing up to a job interview in a full Superman costume.
Exactly.
What other examples do they give?
They also mentioned the victory pose.
Okay.
Arms raised above your head like you just won a race.
Like, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And you could probably do that in a bathroom stall or something if you don't want to draw attention.
Okay, I can see how those poses might project an air of confidence, even if you're feeling anything but. But what about those of us who are, let's say, posture challenged? I spend most of my day hunched over a computer. Can power posing still work for me?
That's a great question, and one that the podcast actually addresses. They emphasize that it's not about, like, being perfectly poised all the time.
Right.
It's about those intentional moments
Okay.
where you consciously shift your posture to send that message to your brain.
So even if I'm a natural sloucher, taking a few minutes to stand tall and open up my posture could still have an impact.
That's the idea. They even claim that just straightening your spine, like lifting your chin slightly, can make a difference. It's about creating that sense of openness, expansion in your body.
I'm definitely intrigued, but I still have some questions.
Yeah.
Like, how long do these effects last? Do I need to be constantly power posing all day long?
Right. That's a good point. And that's something the podcast doesn't specifically address. But the research does suggest that holding a power pose for just a couple of minutes can trigger those hormonal changes.
Okay.
But how long those effects linger is less clear.
So it's possible the benefits are temporary?
Possibly. But maybe even just a temporary boost in confidence could be enough to get you through a tough situation.
Yeah, that's true. It's like a little reset button.
Exactly.
Even if it's just a short-term effect,
Mm-hmm.
it could give you that edge you need to, make a good impression or deliver a presentation with more conviction or just feel a little bit more comfortable in your own skin.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay, I'm starting to see the potential here, but I'm also wondering, is it really just about the hormones?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there something deeper going on? Could it be that simply acting confident makes you feel more confident,
Right.
regardless of any physiological changes?
That's a fascinating question, and I think it speaks to that complex interplay,
Mhm.
between our minds and our bodies. It's probably a combination of factors at play.
Okay.
The hormonal shifts might provide like a physiological foundation,
Mhm.
while the act of consciously changing your posture, reinforces that sense of self-assurance.
So it's not just about faking it, it's more about using your body language to create a feedback loop
Yeah,
that reinforces a more confident mindset.
precisely. It's about aligning your internal state with your external presentation and potentially using that alignment to like shift your perception of yourself.
Okay. I'm sold. I'm ready to strike a pose. But before I start power posing in the middle of the grocery store,
Right.
let's dive a little deeper into the practical applications. What, specific advice does the podcast offer for actually incorporating this technique into daily life?
That's a great question and one that we'll explore further as we continue our deep dive. The podcast offers some really specific and practical tips for using power posing in a variety of situations, and I think you'll find them quite interesting.
All right, let's keep going.
So the podcast suggests some, pretty clever ways to actually weave power posing into your routine.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me the lowdown.
Well, they recommend, trying a power pose for 2 minutes before, like any event that usually makes you nervous.
Okay.
Job interviews, presentations, even a first date.
Mm-hmm.
A quick power pose in the bathroom, they say, could make all the difference.
Okay, that makes sense. I can see how that could help calm, like those pre-meeting jitters or something.
Right.
But what about those everyday moments where you
Mm-hmm.
just need a little boost?
They suggest starting your day with a power pose.
Interesting.
Imagine, standing tall, arms outstretched like you're greeting the sun.
Okay.
It's like a physical affirmation
Uh-huh.
to set a confident tone for the day.
Interesting. It's almost like a I don't know, like a ritual or something, just to
Yeah.
prime your mindset. But I'm thinking about those times when you're already in the thick of things, right?
Yeah.
And you suddenly feel that wave of self-doubt creeping in.
Mm-hmm.
Can power posing help in those moments?
Absolutely. The
Mhm.
podcast suggests, finding a private moment, maybe stepping into a restroom, or even just turning away from your desk for a second
Mm-hmm.
and just assuming a power pose for a minute or two,
Okay.
just to kind of reset.
So it's like a mini confidence booster
Exactly.
on demand.
On demand. There you go.
Okay, that's pretty cool. It's almost like having a secret weapon,
Right.
against those pesky insecurities. But, what if I'm still feeling a little skeptical?
Okay.
Is there any evidence this actually works?
Well, remember, we were talking about Dr. Cuddy's research.
Hmm.
While it's true that some researchers have, questioned the replicability of her findings, there's still a growing body of evidence that supports that link
Okay.
between our physical posture and our mental state.
So even if the hormonal effects are, debatable or whatever,
Right.
there's something to be said for the psychological impact of consciously changing your posture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like tricking your mind into feeling more confident.
Exactly. And the Inner Balance Red Print podcast, they back this up with all this anecdotal evidence. They
Mhm.
share stories of people who have used power posing to successfully, navigate challenging situations.
Right.
From
What?
like nailing presentations to overcoming social anxiety.
Okay, that's pretty compelling. And the host, even shared their personal experience.
Right.
Saying that, power pose before recording episodes to feel more confident and energized.
Right. Which shows that even those who appear naturally confident might have their own little tricks,
Right.
for managing their nerves.
Yeah, exactly. This whole conversation is making me think about, other practices that kind of connect the mind and body.
Mm-hmm.
Like yoga and meditations involve specific postures and, focused breathing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could those be considered forms of, power posing in a broader sense?
That's a great observation. There's definitely a parallel there. Both yoga and meditation, they emphasize, mindful movement
Right.
and breath work to kind of influence our internal state.
Yeah.
Certain yoga poses like warrior pose or mountain pose, they're even designed to evoke those feelings of strength and stability.
So in a way, we might already be tapping into this mind-body connection
We might.
without even realizing it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of becoming more conscious of how our physical actions can influence our mental and emotional well-being.
Exactly. And as we learn more about this connection, we can start to use it more intentionally
Right.
to manage our emotions, boost our confidence,
Mm-hmm.
and just navigate life's challenges.
Yeah.
With more resilience, it's about realizing that we have more control over our internal state than we might think.
This is all pretty empowering stuff. So what's the takeaway for our listeners? Should they be striking Superman poses in their office cubicles?
Well, maybe not during an important meeting,
Right.
but I think the key message here is to just experiment.
Okay.
Try out some power poses, pay attention to how you feel,
Mm-hmm.
and just see if it makes a difference for you.
I agree. It's a simple, accessible technique, right?
Yeah.
It's worth exploring. And even if you're skeptical, there's enough evidence out there to warrant giving it a try.
Absolutely. And who knows, you might be surprised.
All right. Let's wrap up this deep dive into confidence
Okay.
with a final thought for our listener.
I think the most important question to consider is, could consciously changing your physical posture actually lead to a noticeable difference in your confidence levels? We've explored the science, the anecdotal evidence, and even the practical applications. Now it's up to you to experiment and see what you discover.
That's a great point. This isn't about just, passively absorbing information.
Right.
It's about, taking action, right?
Yeah.
Trying things out, becoming an active participant in your own, personal growth.
Exactly. Pay attention to your body language. Experiment. Try different postures.
Mm-hmm.
And notice how they make you feel. You might just uncover a really powerful tool
Right.
for navigating life with more confidence and ease.
And remember, this is just one deep dive into the vast and fascinating world of the mind-body connection.
That's right.
There's so much more to explore, from the impact of, breath work and mindfulness to the intriguing connection between our gut
Our gut.
and our brain.
Oh, yes, the gut-brain connection.
Right?
Fascinating topic. Definitely one for a future deep dive.
Absolutely. But for now, we hope this exploration of power posing has given you a new perspective on confidence
Mm-hmm.
and the incredible power you hold within your own body.
So go ahead, strike a pose, own your space, and see what happens. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.